So, hello and welcome to the YouTube channel. We have another preview show today. So basically, we will be talking with Nathan today for the 83 kg men's preview show going into Istanbul, where IPF Junior Awards will be held. I have Nathan. He's our number 2 if you're looking at jail points, or number 1 if you're looking at dots. So I'll quickly give Nathan the floor to introduce himself, and then we'll get into some very quick questions as to Nathan's background growing up, what influences him as a lifter, and then we'll do the 83 men kg preview show, and then we'll sign off. So Nathan, the floor is yours. Can you please introduce yourself and let us know who you are?
Right, my name is Nathan Gevao. I am the European 83 junior kilo champion as of December 2022, and also the junior British champion 83 kilo again, of course.
That's impressive, man. As a junior, you're racking up those qualifications already. So very quickly, I think one thing we'd like to always do, like I'm very interested in junior lifters especially, is I wanted to ask you, is there anything, looking at your younger days, your background, you're not an old man yet, obviously, but looking at your younger days, high school, sixth form, those younger times, was there anything you think that influenced you to be who you are today? And also in terms of powerlifting, was there any sports, any competitive activities you were involved in that led you to be who you are, basically number 1 on dots in the UK or number 2 on 0 points in the UK, and basically being a top level 83 kg class, almost competing at the open here?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I think the main driver of, I guess, where I am today would be I would credit it to the sports I played when I was younger, to be honest. Since I was young, playing in Kuwait, I did basketball, football, and also volleyball throughout the year, from the age of 4 to the age of about 16. And then when I turned 16, it was focusing in on basketball and volleyball a bit more until I went to uni and played in the second team for volleyball for my first and a bit of my second year. I also swam throughout that time and played a little bit of rugby as well. And really, across all of those, it was always playing competitively. There wasn't a single one of those sports that I did at a lower level or just a participatory level. Every single one of them, it was always team focused competition with the school against other schools, international competitions, which I did quite a few times growing up as well. And so that sporting background and the competitiveness involved in those sports really has led to, I believe, me as a person today. Today I am very competitive still in everything I do, and just my mindset and take on everything. And I believe sports and undertaking in different sports and different just games in general has allowed me to develop a robust mindset where it's much harder to get knocked down and not be able to just get straight back on my feet and keep going.
Okay, that's very solid. I think having that younger sport career or competitive, that always gives you the edge in powerlifting, especially because a lot of people tend to pick up the barbell and this is their first sport, and they're not necessarily used to having like starting from the bottom and working your way all the way to the top. Also understanding the grind that needs to be put into the sport, into a sport that you want to get good at, and understanding like sometimes, it's almost like that dog mentality is needed, where it's like, because I played rugby a bit, and one thing I enjoyed about rugby is when you have the ball and you're scrum with another player, like it's almost like it's me and you in this moment right now, like that's it. It's either I step you or I'm smashing through you, and I need to keep on moving forward.
I would not have wanted to play rugby with you, I can't lie. That's a
Rugby was always my first love, man. Unfortunately, I started rugby so late that I think when I got to the higher level, so I played university, but I never made it past the third team. Newcastle had like 5 teams in total. But I never had that technical background growing up that you develop, where it's not at the level in university. They're not teaching you where you need to be moving for defense, how you need to position yourself for attack. Like that's all the stuff you learn when you're a lot younger. So I obviously missed out on that part, but I always loved rugby, man. It was a mad sport. I loved it entirely. But now to pivot, obviously you sound like a very competitive, well-driven person in every sport you've taken part in. Swimming, basketball, volleyball, even up to university level. would you say the same thing applies to outside your life? Because I think we were talking not too long ago. I was asking you how you're balancing, because you started working, and I was asking you how you're balancing working with gym, and then you were like, oh yeah. Then I think I asked you, how long have you been working for? And then you went, so basically I'm on week 9 of my to-do list of things. So based off that, I think I've been working for roughly about 2 months and a few days now. And I found that so interesting, because like you then told me because obviously you've secured a contract for the next level of your law training. You studied law at Nottingham University. So you told me that you're approaching the end of your current contract. And when you got this job, or when you first started, you had made a to-do list of things for every single week until the next stage in your life, obviously. And I thought you don't hear many people say that. A lot of people don't have a to-do list of things for the day. And also talk about having almost a 12-week plan where you've sorted out every single thing that needs to be done in each week. So could you just expand a little bit on that? That's very interesting to see, and that's an interesting mindset.
Yeah, so I mean, essentially, in terms of getting a training contract in law, which is essentially that job offer that gets you to that point where you can officially say, yes, I am a lawyer now. It is generally with the bigger firms, so not everyone needs a training contract, but it is the most competitive level of sort of law that you can aspire to. And once you have that, it's almost a feeling of you've made it. And in order to get that, there's a ton of setback. There's a ton of hard work that goes into it. And knowing that there was so much I was going to have to get done, it just made sense to have it all planned out, and planning exactly where I wanted to be applying to, planning exactly how I was going to tackle it, planning when my rest periods were, where my exams were going to be. Obviously, I know a lot of students struggle to, for example, train during exam periods and things. That's something that's never been an issue for me, because I'm so structured with everything I do anyway. I know that from this time to this time, I'm going to be working, and then I'm going to go train. And that's my 3 hours out the day where I'm going to go train. And then I'm going to come back, going to work from this time to this time, eat, and then this and this and this. And that's just how I've always been. It makes my life a lot easier, and it stops me from becoming sloppy if everything's structured in my head, structured in my mind. And that just allows me to push forward and be, I guess, the best version of myself, and allow me to progress just at the rate I'm happy to progress at, essentially. So yeah,
that's impressive, man. I think, like you mentioned on there, a lot of students especially struggle with balancing that university and training and social life a bit, because obviously, but if you have a very detailed structure, and this is something I also tell people, I'm not to your level. I struggle to follow I've tried multiple times a to-do list. Nah, I'm gone. I've tried multiple times. I think I'm more of I have time. So from 7 to 3 p.m. I know this whole period is focused on work, for example, or anything work related. And then after I finish work, I know where I'm going to straight away. So it's almost like I segment my life. Rather than having a to-do list, it's more a place where I need to be at in that period. And then I just go. Basically, I know my next step is once I leave a place. I'm not going to go out for a meal after work, because I know straight away I've already sorted out gym needs to be on there, or I've already sorted out I need to go home and sort this out. So that's very interesting to see, and it's a nice key for students to take away if they're any listening to this. Obviously now on week 10 of your to-do list of things, you have a very, very big task coming up. So you'll be competing in the 83 kg class. Obviously, it's one of the most stacked classes in I think juniors. It's between you guys and the 93s. It's very, very competitive. So you're nominated first. Just right behind you have Sean Jin. And then after that, we have Edo from Italy, and then we have Nick Manders. Now, just going through your training, we're going to take it segment by segment, each lifter. You've had a very, very impressive performance so far. I believe your last competition that we have on record is British Nationals, Junior Nationals, where you squatted a 275 kg squat, a 175 kg bench, and a 317.5 kg deadlift. I believe you also went for a 330 deadlift there. Looked very good coming out of the floor, but it's almost like you just lost your balance. And obviously you made some technique changes on the squat, going from flats to hills, so based on this little variables you're taking in, you nominated 767. If we give you that 330 deadlift, hopefully the squat shoes are giving you some benefit. We're talking, I think
780, 790 total. Right? You don't have to tell me, you don't have to nudge, you don't have to go, I'm beyond this, you know, because I'm a competitive lifter myself. Even if you told me I'll total 1000 kg, I'm not always happy. Like the fact you told me what I think you think I can do throws me off a little bit. But obviously, where do you think you're not the same lifter from British juniors? Do you think you've been able to exceed those numbers or even be a better version of yourself to execute better on the platform?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess British Juniors was more of a it was more of a this is my opportunity to do whatever I want because there's no one up behind me. There's no tactics that need to be played. It's just I want to go for that absolute max out. I want to go for that absolute top spot, which at the time was, of course, Sam Watt's total, aiming for
Yes.
790, but it was gunning for that, which obviously you now have that top spot. Congratulations, sir. But yeah, no, I mean everyone's coming for your neck now, so that's fine. That's fine. But
I love it, man.
I think juniors was it was more of a exposure to that top end and being able to see where my weaknesses really are at that top end, because it's not obviously an end that you explore in your training necessarily. A lot of people actually reach that top end, they never see the technique breakdown in that way, and it was good for me in that sense because it allowed me to expose where I was weak. It meant that there was a period of course being weaker while I attempted to change that. It wasn't a crazy amount of time turnover between juniors and worlds right now, but it was a decent amount of time. I mean, there's been a lot of stuff that's happened during that period, of course, between me starting a job,
slamming a lot of weight on your toes.
Too. So I mean, we worked it back down. We're on the way back up, and it's just more of a let's see what happens on the day sort of vibe, to be honest.
Okay. I think so. Is it fair enough to say that
do we have the 100% Nathan? Are you as prepared as you are, or you think you can be for this competition, basically?
I think I'm as prepared as I can be. So we're going to go in and we're going to do our best, and really that's all anyone can do, because aiming for numbers is a silly game in this sport. It's just not the way. It's not the way. So whoever wins, and that's all people can really be charging for, really. So,
So I think definitely
a 9 for 9 performance will be needed. A 9 for 9 performance or a Hail Mary deadlift will be needed to win this weight class 100%. So I think just right behind you we have Sean Jin, who's performing, looks like he's on the upward trend with gym training and online training. So I wanted to get your thoughts as to that. So he was nominated with a 272.5 kg squat, a massive 190 kg bench, or 190.5 kg bench, and a 290 kg deadlift. Now I've listened to a few podcasts and he's mentioned he was injured going into that meet, which is very impressive, at 753 kg total. Now he's also gone in the gym and recently posted a 285 kg squat, if I believe, and also a 305 kg deadlift. Now these are massive increases in his total, and obviously changes the game a little bit, because now because we're gonna go through the lifters, but I think, right, just to quickly go ahead, there is you in first position, there's Shonjin, there's Edo from Italy, but he's had very, very strong training, but I think one thing people have noticed is his Italian meet was very recent and he didn't perform as well as people expected him to perform in that, and it's a very short turnaround, so we don't know how much what's going to be different in about 4 or 5 weeks. There's not much you can change in the plan. And then you have Nick Mandes in third place position. Now that's a very, very stacked lineup between you, Sean, and Nick Mandes. Now obviously Sean is not going to be pulling last. Sean is going to pull, or potentially even Edo, because Edo's pulled 315 in the gym. But then Sean's going to pull. You're going to have to make a decision between, because obviously with that 190 kg bench, depending on how squats go, most likely Sean will be in the lead. Now you might have to decide between, do I pull to surpass Sean, or do I pull to go beyond Sean and also pull a number that I think might be big enough for Nick not to pull me if Nick is having a good day, because obviously he's not one that is known for performances so far, although his last meet was back then in 2021 Canadian Nationals. So what are your thoughts on that stack and that lineup, give or take?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I think 83 is the most stacked. It's not really a question. It's the most stacked male or female class at Junior Worlds this year. It's going to be very exciting to be a part of, and it's just going to be an exciting class in general. But if I'm honest, it's a situation where everyone has their little thing that's about them. I mean, you've got Nick, who obviously is a huge deadlifter, but really, like you said, uh, it's the deadlift that matters, but the deadlift isn't necessarily the be all end all. There
Yes.
are obviously two other lifts at the end of the day,
Yes.
and and history has sort of shown us that Nick sometimes struggles when it comes to performing on the day, be that because of a niggle or an injury or just depth issues, things like that. And because of that, Nick really is always a wild card. Out of everyone, I do believe Nick is the strongest lifter in the gym. When it comes to a 16-hour flight from Canada, lifting at 2 a.m. in the morning his time, having to cut weight and getting that world standard judging.
Yes.
It's a question of will he be able to put it all together to be able to even pull a deadlift that brings him into first place.
Yeah.
His absolute maximum pull could put him into third for all we know, and that's just another consideration. And everyone knows it. Nick knows it too, so it's not like I'm saying anything surprising. But at the end of the day, it's just going to be seeing what he manages to put together. It'll be interesting. When it comes to Edo, I know Edo hit a massive 290 triple.
Massive. I've seen his training.
He's nominated currently with a 282.5 kg squat, 162.5 kg bench, and a 302.5 kg deadlift. Now, looking at his social media, his triple 290 on squats, his bench 172.5 kg in the gym looked relatively easy, and then he's also deadlifted 315 and done very good rep work with 270, 290 give or take for threes or fours. One thing I've heard is the water cut affects him quite a bit, dropping down into the 83 kg class. And I think his recent meet at Italian Nationals, which he hasn't necessarily posted online, kind of show that, because there was a massive drop off from those training numbers to actually what was done on the platform. Unless he was sandbagging and going easy on the day, there are no videos for me to know, unfortunately. But Edo looks very strong too, so like you were saying.
Yeah, so when it comes to Edo, his training is insane. Edo's training has looked insane coming into Worlds, and it was looking just crazy. Obviously he hit a 300 and I want to say 15 kilo deadlift, but it was a deadlift only competition, I believe, late last year. And then this year, for whatever reason, his most recent competition doesn't seem to be an open IPF. I could be wrong, but he hit 762 kilos as a 93 kilo lifter weighing in 85, and his top attempt squat was 290. He did have room for the 300, however, it didn't fall, and I believe that was due to the cut. Through the grapevine, I heard that he was weighing about 88, 89 kilos when he did that 290 triple.
Wow,
and
okay.
It very much seems the same sort of situation, because I also saw him bench 180 around that time. And the fact that his numbers have pulled back even when he's cut down and only sat at 85, which is still obviously 2 kilos over the class, it's a real question of what is he going to put up when he's at weight. And so those combined with the fact that, in my opinion, the deadlifts that he actually completed at that competition seemed soft to a degree. The lockout shoulders aren't necessarily back. It's a question of, will the world judging again be something that is to his detriment? Obviously, extremely strong lifter, current world champion. It'll be interesting to see what he puts up 100%. But yeah, and I do believe that it may not even be just Edo in the back, because I think Sulayman Turkey from France is right there as well. I believe his training's been looking quite interesting, and any slip-ups from the top 3, top 4 will possibly open the door to an upset anyway. So yeah,
that's very interesting. I haven't necessarily
done much research on Sulayman from France, but I'll definitely need to check him out. I think, like you just mentioned, if Edo can put up his training numbers, somehow figure out his dropping in weight, what to cut in, gut cutting, whatever he's doing. That's a very, very scary lifter to face, because a 290 kg triple, if he can do two of those, like if he feels good enough to do 2 of those reps on comp day, last you're talking 295, maybe a 300 kg squat, that's a massive lead. And that really bumps up his total considerably and changes everyone's game, because that subtotal, a lot of people will be watching, because for you, you're a deadlifter, you're a great squatter, decent bencher, and then an amazing deadlifter. So it changes that game that you and Nick will potentially have to play for the final round. And obviously Sean will be in a more comfortable position, being a decent squatter and also a very, very good bencher going forward. Now to talk about the one that kind of throws, like you said, a wild card. I recently listened to a podcast he said, and he doesn't even have a coach. He doesn't necessarily have structured training. He kind of just comes in and...
No. We already talked about Nick, innit?
Yeah.
Would we talk about Sean now?
No, Nick. Yeah.
Did we talk about Sean already?
No, we talked. Yeah, we mentioned Sean. Yeah, Sean has had a massive squat PR already, and a 305 kg deadlift PR already. So obviously there was a massive bump on his nominated numbers alone. So I think that places him in a very, very unique position, just right behind you. He's in a position where he gets to decide what happens, almost. Like, depending on how hard Sean decides to push things, it really throws things in the works for you and potentially Nick as to what happens. Because obviously now Nick also has to consider, do I pull for second or do I pull for first, depending on what you do? You know, do I go for the comfortable pull or do I go for the uncomfortable pull, depending on how close Sean and you are in then pulls. And also Edo, if he has a great day. So that top 1 to 5 potentially looks like an absolute battle. Nick is more of the wild card in training, who seems like you don't know what can happen with him. We've seen a 265 kg squat in the gym, looked relatively comfortable. I think he squatted a bit more than that, around the 270 range, give or take, but the 265 looked the most comp standard I've seen on the social media. Bench is around 165, give or take, and then deadlift is the monster 362.5 kg pull, which just looked ridiculously easy. It's an interesting lineup. Obviously, we saw what Enna was able to do at IPF Worlds, or potentially could have done at IPF Worlds. That's a scary, scary lifter. When you have people with deadlift leverages like that, you don't know what can happen. And for them, 5 kg, 10 kg on the deadlift might not necessarily break their lift or their technique, because obviously the technique is so optimal that it's almost a case of how hyped are they for the lift, and also, you know, it's very hard to call a final deadlift for such a deadlift specialist. So what do you think about Nick as a lifter? Because a lot of people are behind the Nick Manders hype right now. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, like I said, although he has a big deadlift, squat and the bench are the things that matter. So the consistency in the past performances, and obviously, like I said, the long flight, the shaky squat depth, he knows it. Everyone else has sort of talked about it. It's just going to be a question of, can he put together the squat and the bench enough at that world stage to actually perform? But to be honest, I mean, where Nick's pulling will really depend on, I guess, what Sean's doing, because of course Sean has recently put up that big 285 squat,
and 285,
and he's put up the big deadlift,
305
benches that he's been putting up on his stories. But at the end of the day, it very much does seem to be the case that Sean is, of course, traveling. Sean's traveling a little earlier as well, because he has the ability to go out there a little earlier. He's going to be possibly weight cutting. I don't know what Sean normally sits at, so I could be wrong. But Sean obviously going out there a bit earlier. There's not a whole lot of food out there right now. It's not looking good. It's not looking good, bro. Like, situation is a bit sticky. And eating out there, trying to acclimatize, it might be a bit more difficult than everyone anticipated. Being out there early might not actually play into his hands necessarily. But then regardless of that, when it comes to Sean's training, he squats and benches on the same day, on a Wednesday, I believe. And he deadlifts heavy on a Friday. No, wrong way around. Deadlifts heavy on a Wednesday, squats and benches heavy on a Friday. And the fact that he's doing all of those, if you pay attention to his training, he states it as his weekly total. because he's not doing them on the same day in an SBD. And that could very well be something that extremely plays against him because of the fact that not having trained in those circumstances, not ever having maxed out. Although he had a decent meet at Powerlifting America Nationals,
Yes.
juniors and seniors, he's never actually maxed out properly because he's never had anyone pushing him from the back. When he finally has that pressure on him, is he going to be able to perform, and is he going to be able to last all the way through a meet doing squats, bench, and deadlift, regardless of how good of a lifter he may be? Not having practiced those max outs of all three on the same day may be something that plays to the detriment, especially getting into that deadlift after a long day of squatting and benching, after actually pushing your squat to max out, because you know you need those extra kilos to make up for the lack of a as large a deadlift as Nick and I. It may be something that goes against him and actually means that the pull is reduced from what he might necessarily be used to. So it's all tactics for everyone. It's all up in the air. Everyone's a crazy strong lifter. Everyone's impressive, and it's a stat class. So it's all. We'll see what happens on the day in it. Like everyone's just got to do their best.
Okay. That's very, very interesting. Yeah, it is stacked. It's ridiculously tight. There will be a lot of. This is where the handlers will probably shine. A lot of people will need to make fake moves. You know, do all the lot, maybe grab points if they can, 0.5s here and there. But yeah, absolute great class. Hopefully the rest of the class can also pop a decent performance. We also have some big benches later on, like a 192 from somewhere in Norway, all the way down in nominations. So we'll see what happens on the day, basically. So thank you very much for coming on. I think just before we let you go, and hopefully you have a safe trip all the way to Turkey, I think what I just quickly wanted to ask you was, what was your vision? What do you think of the 83 kg class here in the UK? Because I think 83s used to be very busy a few years ago when with obviously Durins, Christian and Owen Hubbard. But now it almost seems like the junior side and almost even the open has kind of dried up also. So it's a very interesting situation in the 83 kg class, almost worldwide even. It's almost like you guys are pushing the standards, but it's almost like it's dipped a little bit.
So yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Obviously, Owen Hubbard has always been there in the UK. He's been there as long as I can remember. I say as long as I can remember. I've been here 3 years. He's been here for like 15. So that
a long time. Owen's done like 100 comps, so God knows how many at this point.
Owen has been up top. And of course we have Durins right there as well. But as much as the class was looking like it was dying down, I do believe that where we are currently, if you were to combine the juniors and the seniors into one big comp, I feel like that age barrier is the only cut off, because obviously you've got on one side, you've got Matthew Pond, who is also one of the lifters going out to Worlds. You've got Joey Awala, who is now a University of Nottingham lifter. Lovely.
Okay.
And I strongly believe that, to be honest, both of those lifters could easily challenge my toe in a few years. They're both extremely young. Pondy, I'm pretty sure, is 18, possibly 19 this year. I don't actually know, but this is definitely his first year as a junior. So yeah, 18, 19 this year. And Joey, I believe, is 20 this year. And so they both have years ahead of them to grow into this class, and are both early 700s. That's a great place to be. When it comes to Owen and Durins battling out at the top there, I believe Owen may be moving on to the 93s later this year. However, he's still here, and so I'll talk about him like he is. And then that we got two more lifters in there. We got Kunz, who of course has a massive deadlift. He's absolutely flying in his training right now. And we have Ade, who a lot of people maybe aren't necessarily or maybe are forgetting about, because he didn't have the greatest All England performance. However, it's his first meet in the 83. He still has time to grow, and consistency is going to be key. And I bet he's going to be flying real soon. And the 83 class just really does look to be shaping up to be very interesting in the next 1 to 2 years anyway. We'll see. I believe that Owen and I bouncing to the 93s eventually is going to be a bit of a drain, but it's here and it's strong. So yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming on, Nathan. Thank you for helping us with the 83 kg men's preview show. Or wishing you the best of luck at IPF Worlds. Have some fun, grab some medals if you can, grab a great, you know what, the most important thing is the experience itself, but you're a very competitive lifter, so you clearly want to grab some medals if you can and potentially come home with a win if that's in the bag. So have a great flight. Thank you so much for coming onto the show, and hopefully we'll catch you maybe while you're in Turkey. We never know. So let's see how things go, man.
All right. Thank you in a bit, man.